In this video, I want to talk about Positron, a new IDE for data science. It is developed by Posit, which is a company behind many other open source tools that you may are already using. This IDE is based on VS Code that you probably already know or have heard about, so you may recognize the interface. But they added a lot of features for data science professionals and it's very good. So let's see a concrete example of how I'm using Positron to work with a Python project. Here I am in my terminal and I want to open Positron in a specific folder where I have some database. I go to the Tidy Tuesday directory, which is where I have some visualizations I made for the Tidy Tuesday challenge. And then I open Positron where I am. Okay, so you can see a lot of stuff is already happening. I have a Python environment where I can already type stuff. So for example, 1+1 will just work. You can see that Positron recognize my Python virtual environment managed by UV in the .env directory, which we can find right here. The very first features you will see in Positron is those two spans, which is the variable spans and the plot spans. Basically, they let us see variables as we define them. So for example, if I just say x equals 10, and I go to the variable span, I can see that I have a value, which is 10, and an integer. This means that in practice, I can basically run my code line by line and step by step see how values are evolving in my environment. Okay, here I am in a specific project. You can see that I have some packages to import, so I can run this, and now I can see which are the functions that are usable and in memory. Now I can read a dataset and I can print it to the console, but let's say I want to see more of just the head, so the first few rows, but the entire dataset. I can go to the variable spans, click here, and now I can see the entire dataset. I can scroll, I can sort the columns, clear sortings, I can sort my views, or I can go back to my file. Then I have a bunch of code that is meant to make a chart. Let's say I create a basic Versatility figure. So right now it's empty because I just created what's all around the figure. Now I use the calendar function from the dayplot package, which lets me create a calendar heat map on a Versatility axis. So let's just run it to see what's happening. Okay, now we can see that the same chart we had before has now content inside of it. Then I want to add some annotations. Okay, I can see it right now. Let's add a small description, another one, and I save it in output.png. And if I open it, you can see that I have this chart. So the annotation is actually not very well placed, but it works. One of the best things of Positron is extensions. Basically, you can install extensions to Positron that other people made, and it's very useful because a lot of stuff that people have developed that you want to use. For example, if you use R a lot, you probably need a code formatter and ideally a language server, and here developed by the same team behind Positron as an extension just for it. Another cool extension from Positron is called Error Lens. Basically, it highlights all errors in my code directly inside the editor. For example, here, if I define an X variable and then a Y variable, if I try to use the double X variable, which doesn't exist, it will say undefined name. And this is very convenient because I don't have to think about where could be the issue. I know exactly where it is and I can understand it very quickly. And if I correct the error, you can see that I don't have any error messages again. And the cool thing is that it works for warnings too. For example, if I say import pandas, it will say pandas import but unused. Please note that this works mostly because I'm using stuff to analyze my code. It will not work just by default. For example, I have ref for my code formatting and type for my type checking in Python. If you work in a field related to database, you probably will be interested in the color highlight extension, which automatically colors every color you write in a code, which makes it very easy to inspect your code and find specific stuff. Another cool feature that I really like from Positron is I have, for example, a CSV right here named page view, and if I click on it, it will open as a table and I can easily browse it without having to write any kind of code. Once you get comfortable with the editor, you can start to learn shortcuts. For example, if I'm looking for a specific file, let's say the pageview CSV file I mentioned before, I just hit Command P and I start to type the name of the file. Then I hit enter and it opens it for me. Now let's say I want to find the dependencies in my project, which are defined in a pyproject.toml file. I hit Command P once again and I start to write what I'm looking for. I hit enter and I can see them right here. Now let's see another example using R instead of Python. Here, let's say I want to go into this directory, which is an R project I'm working on. I open Positron. I'm inside my R project. A nice thing with Positron is that it automatically detected that I'm inside an R project and open an R session for me, which means that if I open my console, I can start to write some R code and it will just work. Now, thanks to R, another project from Posit, which offers a lot of nice things for our developers, we can do a lot of cool things inside Positron. So now I'm inside a package, and if I want to load my package, in order to try it, I have to run dev tools and the function load all. And you can see that as I start typing load all, you can see that that's one of the suggestions, and I can see a complete description of what this command will do inside my package, all arguments and the default value. If that's a command I actually want to run, I can just hit enter, enter again, and now my package is loaded. R lets you do a nice of other things. For example, let's say I have this function that I want to understand, but I'm not sure what are the role of those functions. For example, I don't know what the structure function does. So one thing I can do is I can just hover it and it will open the complete definition of the structure function. I can look for what are the arguments, details, and examples. If you're using Git, and you probably should, another very nice thing with Positron is a specific extension called GitLens. It does a lot of things for Git users, but what I consider the core feature is that you can see when was the last time a line was changed. For example, okay, I wonder when this specific line was changed, and I can see that it's me 3 months ago, and the name of the commit is whip for work in progress. Now, if I decide to go inside another document, I can go right here, and I can see it's me still 2 months ago, and you can see the name of the commit, which is add type market class attribute and resync test. Please note that this will work for any programming language you can think of, since it's a feature from Git and not from Python or R. Last but not least is that since Positron is built on top of VS Code, we can use it for any programming language we want. For example, I have a website in this directory and I want to work on it. Does that mean I need to install extra stuff? Not at all, because everything will just work. So this website needs me to run npm run dev to create a local development of the website so I can preview it. And if I open this link in my browser, you can see that I'm locally developing my website and I can start working on it, make changes. For example, let's say I want to change this data for humans sentence by something else. I can just look for it inside the entire project. One thing I can do is go right here, start typing humans, and I can see all occurrences of the word humans. The one I'm looking for is right here, so if I click on it, it will open the file of interest at this specific location. And let's say I want to replace the word humans with zombies. I can save my file, I go back to my browser, and you can see that this has changed dynamically. This does not happen because of Positron, but just because Positron lets me write any kind of web development code any way I want, so this is very nice. But if you're a data professional, I highly recommend you to try it at least a few weeks, just to give you an idea of what's possible, and once you get used to it, you really can't do without it. The project is in very highly active development. As you can see, the last commit is literally 2 hours ago. Know that this project is free open source and you can install it on pretty much any kind of computer you have, so you really have no excuses to not try it. I hope you enjoyed this video, that you learned something, and that I gave you the taste of trying this new IDE. See you soon!